Hey, 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 welcome to the Attic Manadad here, joined as usual by my mythic drafter brother, Brobi One Kenobi.
Hey, hey, hey.
Gonna talk about Streets of New Capenna. You said that sounds edgy, Streets of New Capenna. Everything you need for pre-release and draft, or everything we're predicting anyway. Let's take a look at what we'll be talking about in this video, and there will be chapter breaks if you're watching on YouTube. First of all, we can talk about the release dates, and then we'll talk about pre-release has these seeded boosters for the different crime families, and then what's the contents of the draft boosters. As you know, sometimes those are different for different sets. It is a 3-color set, so we'll talk about the draft strategy or the limited strategy based in 3-color sets. Mana bases and fixing in the set, I put that right up top because it is a 3-color set. I usually put that later in these presentations, but we're going to talk about mana bases right up the top. We'll talk about the official 3-color archetypes and then some of the more hidden or unofficial archetypes and build-arounds you can do. We'll talk about removal by color. We'll talk about combat tricks by color. We'll talk about top commons predicted. Of course, you never know until you play the set what's the top commons, although the green and the white one are going to be great. Everybody knows that. We'll talk about that when we get there. Traps and constructed plants, expected money drafts, and we'll be getting Brobi's thoughts throughout because, he was on to that make 3 samurai tokens and scry 3 before anyone else was. He just had to read the card. He knew it was good.
Them's are the streets.
Some of us had to figure it out. New Capenna, paper pre-release. They're doing that before the digital pre-release. So April 22nd, which is like 2 days from when I record, probably 1 day from when this posts on YouTube.
They're not releasing it on Arena first?
They're releasing it in paper first. Arena MTGO gets it April 28th. So you'll be able to play it this weekend in paper if you have a local game store that's doing things like that. And then, even if you can't make it to a pre-release, check out like their discords and stuff. You can play people over the internet. You just go get a box and build your sealed deck, and you can probably find some matches on Spell Table. If you can't happen to make a pre-release, if you're a busy dad like me.
You think they're going to do that for the sets coming up? They're going to just release it on paper first because it's
if this one does well, yeah. I think they make more money in paper, so it makes sense to release it first. It's like a movie, right? You put it in theaters, you get more money from the movie ticket than you do from the cable or DVD or anything like that.
That would make me like, I don't know, at the local game store if it's on Arena.
How much of a boomer do I sound like when I say DVD? And then official worldwide paper release is April 29th. So I guess that's when you can buy it on Amazon and stuff. So this set is based around 5 crime families in New Capenna. We've got the Obscura, which are white, blue, black, Esper. We've got the Maestros, which are blue, black, red, Grixis. The Riveteers, black, red, green, which is also known as Jund. The Cabaretti, red, green, white, also known as Naya. And Brokers, green, white, blue, also known as Bant. And you'll notice those symbols show up as watermarks on some of the cards. So that can be a real shortcut to try and figure out, what deck the card is designed for. If you see that watermark behind the text on the card of one of these symbols, you'll know that's the crime family it's supposed to work with. And if you are going to the pre-release, definitely be aware you are going to pick a crime family and you're going to get one of your boosters is going to be like this seeded booster. And I was just chatting with Twitch chatter Blue Manitou, who was able to check out some of the footage from the pre-release of Loading Ready Run and confirm that these boosters have not just the watermark cards, but they have cards in that color. So that is going to be relevant, right? So let's say you want to spike your pre-release. What crime family are you going to try to pick? A lot of people are arguing for Maestros, just classic sealed strategy where you try to get the removal from black and red and the draw from blue and build around that. Green and white do, however, have busted commons, which we'll get into when we talk about the top commons. Actually, we'll get into it way before because they'll come up in some of the archetypes. But anyways, so I can see picking one of the families that has green or white for that reason, if you just want to maximize your chances of like getting power at the common level. I don't know about how good that strategy is. The other strategy I'm considering myself is picking Cabaretti or Riveteers. Those are the two crime families that have red and green, and red and green have a treasure theme in this set, so they make a lot of treasure tokens, which is actually going to let you splash everything. So no matter what color you get something, what, you know, powerful in, if you're base
Splash
red, green,
ramp.
you're going to splash and ramp into it. So it could definitely wind up that Cabaretti or Riveteers are the strategies to play with. And we'll get into what those decks have, so you can also think about what, you know, kind of strategy you play best with. In terms of the draft boosters, pretty standard for this set. You got a rare, a mythic rare, 3 uncommons, 10 commons. A traditional foil card of any rarity replaces a common in 33% of the packs. So on average in your steel pool, I guess you'll get 1 to 2 foils that could, you know, you could get a foil mythic or a rare. And then you're going to get a basic land, which if this is, I took this from the Wizards website, if this is to be believed, then the other common lands are just in the common slot. We'll talk about them when we get to the mana bases. 3-color set strategy notes. I think you and I were both out of the game during Khans of Tarkir, which is the other big 3-color set. But anyways, most people agree that in draft, what you're going to try to do is draft the 2 allied colors initially. Just pick an allied color pair that seems to be giving you good cards, maybe in pack 1 or first pack and a half. And try to suss out whether the neighbors are open, right? So if you're green-white, try to look and see, is red also open or is blue also open? And colorless cards will go in all decks, but the power level is pretty low in this set for those. Monocolored cards go in 3 of the 5 shards, as they're called. Dual color cards go in 2 of the 5 shards. And then tricolor cards are where the big power lies. And there is plenty of mana fixing, but you know, you don't want to wait too long to take it, because you're going to get so much power from playing those 3 mana cards. You're going to have to take your fixing early enough to try and do that. So definitely, it is kind of a snooze sometimes to pick lands in the middle of a pack, but you know, or early in a pack. But it can be really critical to being able to pick up the high power cards later and be able to play them. And my prediction is that 4 and 5 color soup decks are going to be super strong in this format and very, very viable. So depending on how advanced you want to be, you can do that. Mana bases at rare, we got the triomes that we're missing. All the shard colors for triomes, same as the triomes. Just comes into play tapped. Tap it for 3 colors. Counts as the basic land type of each type, and cycles for 3.
Nice.
Surprisingly, cycling is not a mechanic in the set other than on these cards. Broker's Hideout, Cabaretti Courtyard, Meister's Theater, Obscura Storefront, Riveteers Overlook. These are the common tri-lands, kind of. I call them evolving trialds, because they immediately sacrifice upon entry, which is relevant for some cards that care about sacrifice. And then you search up one of the 3 basics of that color, put it into play tapped, and gain 1 life. Those will be pretty good. You'll want to pick those. And then also at common, you have the ally color dual lands that come into play tapped, and they're going to be able to sacrifice and draw a card in the late game, nice. Which is good. So very, very good fixing common lands. Also at common, don't sleep on these as fixing. They look like, you know, big drop creatures, but they all have this text at the bottom: exile from your hand, target land gains tap for one of the 3 mana colors of the cost of them, and until it's cast from exile. And so then in the late game, you can cast it from exile using that land, by the way, that you powered up to be able to tap for different colors. And also, these are all at common. So as you can see,
That's right.
fixing really good. All these cards are really decent. I mean, I really like this Shattered Seraph, which is a 4/4 flyer that ETBs you gain 3 life.
7.
I mean, it's 7 mana, but like
That brings you back when it hits.
it comes back and it's gonna
Phase.
Glamorous Outlaw, deal 2 damage, scry 2 when it ETBs. Maybe the worst one here in the Mass Bandit is a 5/5 Menace Vigilance. You know? Or maybe the Rakish Revelers is the worst one. 5/3, bring a 1/1 citizen. I mean, it's always good to get 2 bodies in one card. More on the fixing. So treasures are everywhere in this set. Here's some colorless and red cards that make treasures. Common and uncommon. I'll just keep moving fast because I know we got a lot to get through. But there's some green cards, and then there is one black card that makes a treasure if your creature dies. You have to actually read this card carefully, the Fake Your Own Death. Until end of turn, target creature gets +2/+0 and gains. When this creature dies, return to the battlefield tapped, and you create a treasure token. If it doesn't die, if you use that 2/0 on your first striker or whatever, and it wins the combat and doesn't die, you don't get the treasure. But you can see stuff like, look at this 1/4 up here, Glittermonger. Tap, create a treasure token.
Yeah.
The fight spell, Prize Fight, creates a treasure token. And then
Briefcase is a treasure token.
Briefcase is a treasure token. There's one in red. Going back, where is it? The Glittering Stockpile, which is
like gold vein pick though that deals the damage and creates the treasure.
Yeah, there is this Sticky Fingers. Here's your Gold Vein pick. I know you love Gold Vein pick. I was going to talk about this later, but this is your jam right here. 1 mana aura enchant creature, gives it menace, so it's get in. Hopefully, if you've set your deck up right, and when it deals combat damage, it creates a treasure token.
Okay.
And when the creature dies, you draw a card. You can pop that on your Goldhound, so you got a 1 red treasure dog here. First strike menace. So that's going to get in, and then tap and sacrifice as a treasure.
Aggro. Yeah.
Yeah. I know you like that. So yeah, red-green treasures. So let's talk about the 5 crime families briefly here. Each crime family has a legendary creature, a charm, and a non-legendary creature. I believe they're all creatures as uncommon signposts. And generally they're all of a pretty decently high power level. Obscura, their mechanic is Connive, which is you draw a card, then discard a card when you connive, and if the card you discarded is not a land, the creature that connived gets a +1/+1 counter. So we'll talk about that in the next slide more. But so Quetzal, Augur of Agonies. Whenever you draw a card, target opponent loses 1 life, you gain 1 life. So if you're going to be conniving, you're going to be drawing a lot of cards. You're going to be just doing those little pings. It's a 3/4 for 4, pretty good. And there's a lot of other ways to draw besides connive, as you'll see. Obscura Charm is like, all these charms are great. You can return a multicolored permanent from the graveyard to the battlefield tapped. You can counter an instant or sorcery, or you can destroy a creature or planeswalker with mana value 3. Basically, you're going to be using that last mode probably the most, but the other modes are gravy. And Nimble Larcenist, go ahead.
Pretty even across the board with abilities.
In terms of the power level?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, none of those is necessarily worth 3 mana, but the flexibility on an instant spell, having that is definitely worth it. It's
sure
you're gonna like them, and as long as you got your mana base set up correctly, you're gonna hate them if you can't quite get your 3rd pip. Nimble Larcenist, 2/1 flyer. When it enters, target opponent reveals their hand, and you choose an artifact, instant, or sorcery card from it and exile that card. So a little 2-for-1.
Yeah, that misses sometimes.
It will miss sometimes, especially in the late game, right?
Mediocre. That's like a
okay. So Connive. You got this 1/1 double striker, and whenever it becomes the target of a spell, you control it connives, so that can start, you know, boop boop boop, powering up. You got this 3/2 pickpocket that connives and then also bounces stuff, which looks like a pretty strong uncommon to me. You know, the body that bounces is always generally pretty good, and will probably a lot of the time be a 4/3. The thing about this, I want to get your thoughts on this. You can think about this while I'm reading some of these cards, but if you're conniving a bunch, do you run less land because you want to try to be discarding non-land cards and you know you're going to be drawing through your deck and getting to those lands more? Did you try to build a deck with, you know, 15 or 16 lands instead of 17 lands?
That's 3 color.
Something to think about. Fairy Vandal is a payoff for whenever you draw your second card each turn, which Connive is going to help you do.
We've seen that.
You've seen this card before, yeah. This card I think is going to be running around a lot. It has some good play. It was in Eldraine, wasn't it? Was it also in a core set? Patch up, return up to 3 target creature cards with total mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Because you're going to be discarding your Connive cards, that's why I put this on the slide. You're going to, you know, discard some small creatures and then just bring them right back. I don't think you're going to play that much. Graveyard Shift, similar strategy, right? The Reanimator. You can play the Reanimator decks with this. Gathering Throng is a 3/1, and when it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for any number of cards named Gathering Throng, reveal them, and put them into your hand, then shuffle. So it's the got 'em catch 'em all of this set.
Yeah, that guy again.
And I think this works with Connive, right? Because you just, if you get a couple of these, right, you can load up your hand. It's a non-land card that's easy to discard. And then a 3/1 body, right? It just, I mean, having 2 or more of these in your deck, you're going to play them probably. Hypnotic Grifter is a 1-drop that is a mana sink and a repeat Connive trigger. So I do think that will be pretty good in these decks. Metropolis Angel is a blue-white card, and whenever you attack with 1 or more creatures with counters on them, which the Connive creatures you've got will be having counters on them, you draw a card. And it's a 3/1 flyer. Security Bypass is the one that makes a creature unblockable, but it does have to attack alone. And when it deals combat damage, it connives. So pop that on your Illuminator Virtuoso, right? It's going to connive when it gets targeted by your spell, and then it's going to be a double striker getting in and growing every time it hits. Rafine's Silencer is a 1/1 that connives, and then when it dies, target creature an opponent controls gets -X/-X until end of turn, where X is Rafine Silencer's power. We'll have to see.
You're right. I thought about it. I think you will draft this deck with less lands, and you'll just try, because there's so much fixing. Even if it's 3 color, you'll play this as like a 15 land deck.
Maybe. If yeah, we'll have to see. But yeah, that's what you're thinking.
Yeah, because you are just trying to discard non-land cards, and you have enough fixing going down the land situation.
And you got those creatures that also fix, right? So those could be possible discard targets too.
Sure.
And you can run those creature off colors, those the 3-pip exile creatures off color too, right? Even if you just have 2 of the colors.
Yeah, but you're not trying to discard non-land cards, you know. So I mean, you're not just trying to discard like lands in like a low-land deck, so it all makes sense.
Yeah, but if you say you got a couple of these graveyard shifts, right?
And these Connive cards are like they're low casting costs. So
yeah. This Psionic Snoop, this is going to be a really interesting one to see. It's a 0/3 flash ETB Connive. 3 mana. I just it looks bad. On the other hand, it's gonna, if you can reliably connive to get the +1/+1 counter, it's a 1/4 flash, and there are enough X1 creatures, you're gonna eat maybe an attacking creature with it. It definitely seems like a defensive.
It's a play. Yeah, it's definitely a play. Feels like it's a play in a losing deck, though.
Yeah. And then Echo Inspector I like a lot. It's a 2/3 flyer that connives when it enters, so probably going to be a 3/4 unless you're, unless you really need the card that you would otherwise discard, and then that's fine too. Maestros, their ability is Casualty, which is cards that have Casualty are spells generally. And you have to sacrifice a creature with the power equal to or greater than the casualty number. Okay, well, let's actually look at a casualty card. For example, join the Maestros. Casualty 2, right? As you cast the spell, you may sacrifice a creature with power 2 or greater. When you do, copy this spell. So, 5 mana, make a 4/3 Black Ogre Warrior creature token, or if you got a 2 power creature sitting around, you sacrifice that. Now you've turned that into another 4/3 Black Ogre Warrior creature token. Signpost Legend here is Cormella Glamour Thief, a 2/4 haste. Taps to add Grixis. Spend this mana only to cast instant or sorcery spells. So it's kind of a spell slinger thing. And when it dies, you're going to return up to 1 target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. And it does have haste. Probably a 2-for-1 most of the time. It won't take that much building to make it a 2-for-1. The Maestro's Charm, the last mode is the main removal mode here. 5 damage to a creature or planeswalker. But you've also got, drain 3, gain 3. And you've got, look at the top 5 cards of your library, put 1 into your hand, the rest into your graveyard, stock your graveyard kind of thing, which pays off with some stuff in these colors. And Corpse Appraiser, 3/3 for 3, enters the battlefield. And as long as there's a creature card in a graveyard, you're going to get to essentially, what is that? Look at the top 3 and put 1 into your hand. What's the card that does that? I don't know. It's like a blue card that does
Brainstorm?
That. Kind of.
Brainstorm?
It's not quite Brainstorm, but you know what I mean.
Whatever.
Basically, draw a card. Draw a card from a selection. So Casualty, you're going to want to play stuff like Forge Boss there, the second card. Whenever you sacrifice 1 or more other creatures, it deals 2 damage to each opponent. Some of the casualty cards are Grisly Sigil, which is going to deal 3 damage, and you gain 3 life if it's if it was dealt non-combat damage this turn. So if you copy it, right, it's going to be 4 damage. Plus it's going to remove the shield counters, which we'll talk about later. And that is only 1 mana. And Casualty 1, I think, Limited Resources was making the argument Casualty 1 is just so much better than Casualty 2 or Casualty 3. So your bread and butter stuff is going to be that. Make Disappear, which is a counter spell with Casualty 1 that you can clone if you need it, right? Rooftop Nuisance, taps creatures and you draw cards. Rob the Archives, exile cards. The problem with Rob the Archives, I will say, is you exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play those cards this turn. If it was until the end of your next turn, would be so much better.
It's uncommon too.
Yeah. So I think Rob the Archives might be a little bit of a trap. There might be some aggro decks that would still
that red deck could be really low to the curve though.
Yep. Yeah. Where you're just like, yeah, I'll do this. I'll have stuff to sacrifice. I'll try to draw into what I need. Light 'em Up. Another good removal spell, right? 2 mana, deal 2, but you can clone it. So you could take out 2 creatures there. The price of 1 card in 1 of your creatures. Involuntary Employment, right? This is your threaten effect. It is uncommon, but you gain control of a creature, and then it's going to give you a treasure. And you can use that to cast your Light 'em Up, right? And then sacrifice the creature you stole.
They had to make the card an uncommon here in this set.
Ob Nixilis, the Adversary, is one of the chase mythics here that has Casualty X. which makes a copy of itself that isn't legendary, and it's really good. It's got a lot of text. If you open it, you should read it so you know what it does, and you can draft around it. Exhibition Magician, right? Anything that comes down is going to make a token. I think should be a consideration for your casualty deck. This comes down, makes a 1/1 token. Girder Goons dies into a 2/2 token. And then, of course, if you're sacrificing lots of creatures, other than the Forge Boss, the Pyre Sledge Arsonist is your other big uncommon sacrifice payoff in this set. Where you can do 1 tap, deal X damage, where X is the number of permanents you've sacrificed this turn. And don't forget treasures count with that, so you can use that to sling some serious damage on a turn if you sack a bunch of treasures. Riveteers. These are the gang that builds stuff. Whenever you attack, we got Mr. Orfeo the Boulder. Whenever you attack, double target creature's power until end of turn. Riveteer's Charm. I think the main mode on that is going to be this first one. Target opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker they control with the highest mana value. The Soul Shatter effect, which is very good. Otherwise, you can use it to exile cards, and until your next end step, you can play those cards. So you play that on your opponent's end step, and then you got all your mana untapped to play stuff. And exile target player's graveyard. You will use very rarely, but against the blue-black decks, it will actually just completely shut them down. And Crew Captain, 4/2 haste, has indestructible as long as it enters the battlefield this turn. I mean, it's kind of whatever. You're gonna get in. It kind of plays into the Blitz theme, right? Where this Blitz mechanic is some creatures you can cast for their Blitz cost, which means they come in, they have haste, and they sacrifice themselves at the end of the turn, and you get to draw a card. So you kind of have that option with a lot of these. For example, the Girder Goons we looked at before, right? It's a 4/4, dies into a 2/2 rogue creature token. So you could pay 4, get a 4/4 that attacks, draw a card, and leave behind a 2/2. Actually seems just fine. Plus you're getting all your sacrifice synergies in red-black. I like this Nightclubber all the way on the right as a 2/2 blitzes for 3, but it's less pips. And creatures your opponent control get -1/-1 until end of turn. There are so many 1/1 tokens or X1s running around. I really think people might be sleeping on this card early on in the format, but I really think it's just going to shut down. It's kind of like Life of Toshiro Umezawa in Kamigawa, you know, that -1/-1 is just, that mode is just so good. And just cleans up against certain decks and early drops. I think the Nightclubber is going to be a similar effect. That's my prediction anyway. So yeah, you can do fake your own death on your Blitz creatures so that they die, you draw the card, and then they come back tapped and you make a treasure. Seems like a good little synergy there. Other than that, there's some, like, this Workshop Warchief at rare is a 5/3 trample, enters the battlefield, you gain 3 life. When it dies, you create a 4/4 green Rhino Warrior creature token. And the Blitz cost is actually more than the cost to just play it.
Okay.
That's the house. Anyways. That's Blitz. Looks pretty aggro to me. I can definitely see, like, if you curve out and you just blitz, and your opponent can't really deal with it, you can just win really fast. Because remember, every time these Blitz creatures die, you're drawing the card, so.
Yeah, but you're not building your board.
You're not building your board, right? So if they do stop like you, you're dead.
Well, it feels like there's a go big thing, right?
Go big?
You're kind of like building up to like a bigger assault.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you could hold it back, right? You could try to do like some board wipey stuff and then
And then you can blitz in like the kind of final swing, maybe. I don't
Yeah,
know.
maybe. There's this Riveteer's Decoy, right? It's a 3/1. You can blitz in and force stuff to block, and the blitz cost is more than the regular cost.
Mm-hmm.
So that can be kind of that strategy, right? Just build up your board and then blitz that guy in, force your opponent to
Ooh,
block
the
it.
old lure creature.
Not really a lure though, because I guess
It's just one creature.
just
Where's it
one
at?
creature has to block it. So
Okay.
maybe that's not a good strategy. Why don't they do the real lure creatures anymore?
Because it was busted, I guess.
It's a little bit busted. Rocco Cabaretti Caterer. This one's been kind of controversial. It's a 3/1. When it enters the battlefield, you can search your library for a creature card with mana value X or less, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. Some people are saying, like, okay, well, do I really want to pay 3 more mana for a creature? On the other hand, if you're doing the 5-color shenanigans, right, this is a way to get around your fixing and bring in something with pips you don't even have on the battlefield.
And that's a stretch.
But Cabaretti is Alliance, which is like landfall for creatures, creature fall, people call it. And it's abilities that trigger every time a creature enters, right? So Rocco Cabaretti is a creature that's going to bring a friend onto the battlefield. The Cabaretti Charm has a mode where you create 2 1/1 green and white citizen creature tokens. The Brazen Upstart, when it dies, it's going to draw you a creature. The Cabaret Charm is
fun, and trample is the nice finisher there.
Yeah, so the Cabaret Charm is probably the weakest of the charms because the removal part is this top mode, and some of the time you're just not going to have a board wide enough to deal with the threat that you'd like to hit with it. On the other hand, like, it's all in on the synergy of going wide, right? If you don't have a wide board, you're going to create 2 1/1 citizen creature tokens. If you do have a wide board, you're going to zap something, or you're going to anthem your whole team +1/+1 and give them trample and get a big swing. So Cabaret Charm working very well with that thing. This is also, in my opinion, the most supported mechanic. You'll see I have 2 slides here to cover all the cards I think fit in nicely in this mechanic. Elegant Entourage is a 4/4. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, target creature other than Elegant Entourage gets +1/+1 and gains trample. Kind of wish it wasn't the other than thing, but Venom Connoisseur. First time a creature enters the battlefield on a turn, it gets Death Touch. The second time a creature enters the battlefield on a turn, all your creatures get Death Touch. So that's another one for go wide swinging with all your 1/1 tokens, I think. Social Climber, just going to gain you life as creatures enter the battlefield. Attended Socialite, whenever another creature enters the battlefield, it gets +1/+1 till end of turn. That one's not so great, but it's your bread and butter common. Courier's Briefcase is a treasure that brings along a token. Warm Welcome is a impulse effect that brings along a token. Luxurious Libation is a pump effect that brings along a token. Or the Family is a pump effect, and if you control 4 or more creatures, you're going to get +4/+4 instead of +2/+2. And it doesn't seem unreasonable to have 4 or more creatures in this deck, as you can see, because you're just making 1/1 tokens left and right. Take to the Streets. Creatures you control get +2/+2 until end of turn. And citizens you control get an additional +1/+1 and gain vigilance until the end of turn. We'll talk about the citizen deck later, but citizens are all over these colors, including the Raccoon Citizen, which is a 1/2 that can get double strike with a little mana sink here. And then more cards in this archetype. You got these green-white citizen cards. So you got a 2/4. Other citizens you control get +1/+0, and when it attacks, it makes a citizen. You've got Civil Servant, which is a 2/3, and you can tap a citizen to give it +1/+0 on lifelink until end of turn. So right, if you get 2 of those, one could be tapping to pump the other one. Rumor Gatherer, this one looks really strong to me. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, scry 1, and then if it's the second time it's resolved this turn, you draw a card. And if it's the third time, you scry 1 again, by the way. But you can see where having that instant speed Cabaretti Charm, you can draw a card on your opponent's turn, right? Because you can make 2 creatures at instant speed. And get the trigger on that again. Celebrity Fencer. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. That might be one of those things that's kind of a runaway. There was like that Felidar thing in Zendikar that could get like that. Speakeasy Server enters the battlefield. You're going to gain a life for each other creature you control. Crowbar is an equipment that brings along a citizen. It can also destroy artifacts or enchantments. Soloist. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, target creature and opponent controls can't block this turn, and if it's the second time, that creature is forced to attack. Witty Roastmaster is just going to ping every time a creature drops, ping your opponent. You got a rare here, Devilish Valet. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you double its power until end of turn, so that can be fun to kind of like storm off, play a bunch of creatures and get it huge. And it is trample and haste. Gathering Throng, obviously it's a citizen and you're going to be able to just cast creatures all day long if you draft enough of those. Mage's Attendant brings along a creature with it, and Exhibition Magician brings along a creature with it. Oh, any thoughts? You still with me?
Honestly, I got sucked into looking at a business text and I just zoned out there for that last little second.
Go wide creatures. Looks well supported.
You know I love that strategy.
Yeah.
So I mean, no, I didn't catch enough of it to give you an accurate breakdown. I'm sorry.
All right. Are you done looking at your text, or should we pause?
No, I was like typing a text and I realized it was after 10 and I probably shouldn't send a text, even though they had texted me late.
Yeah.
And so I just deleted it. And
Yeah.
then I tuned back in. You asked me what's going on. And it wasn't like I looked at it for that long. But
work-life balance. Take it from Manadad. Don't let people, don't answer text at 10 and then people won't expect you to.
This project's a little different. It's like it's the project I'm on. I want to get paid tomorrow.
All right. Well, back with the brokers, they have an archetype called shield counters. This will be one I want to get your opinion on. So a shield counter you can see on Disciplined Duelist over here on the right. If the creature would be dealt damage or destroyed, you remove the shield counter instead. So it's like a one-time protection.
Mm-hmm.
Notably, exile or minus toughness effects will get around it. And also those things that deal damage in multiple waves will kind of get around it. Double strike will get around it. But anyways, let's talk about the brokers. Lagrella the Magpie is our legendary signpost. When she enters the battlefield, you exile any number of other target creatures controlled by different players until she leaves the battlefield. When an exiled card enters the battlefield under your control this way, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. So the wording on this, everyone agrees, is terrible. In a two-player game, it's just going to exile something of your opponent's until it leaves the battlefield, and then you can also exile something of your own, and there are some creatures with good ETB effects and things where you might want to hide it under the Lagrella so that if it's removed, you get that ETB again. Plus, when it comes back, it's going to get 2 +1/+1 counters on it, which +1 counters are also good. There's a heavy counters matter theme in this colors. Go ahead.
Oh, so like if Lagrella died, does that ability still is in effect?
So yeah, so you bring your Lagrella down, she exiles some, 2-drop.
She dies. The creature comes
back, and she exiles something of your opponent's. Your opponent immediately kills Lagrella because they want their creature back. So their creature comes back into play from exile. Your creature comes back into play from exile. But you get to put 2 +1/+1 counters on it.
That triggers on the sack. It triggers.
Yeah, it is. Everyone agrees it is one of the worst worded cards in the set. In recent memory, even very confusing. Even it sounds like you could exile any number of other target creatures.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah,
thing
it
is,
does.
target creatures controlled by different players, right?
Well,
So
they
it's
say
like
any number.
it's commander, yeah,
Right.
right. So
It's
it's
text
creatures
for
controlled by different players as a whole unit.
yeah.
So you can any number of creatures controlled by different players. But in a 2-player match, that's 2 players. But in a 4-player commander pod, that could be 4, right?
No,
So,
it's easy to understand.
anyways, Broker's Charm. Main thing you're gonna do. There's a fight spell plus. It's actually a bite +1/+0 and deals damage. That's your removal on this, and then your gravy on top is you can destroy enchantments or draw 2 cards at instant speed. Disciplined Duelist is a 2/1 first striker that comes with a shield counter. So it kind of makes up
Double strike.
for it. Yeah,
Double
2/1 double
striker.
striker. Did I say first strike?
You did?
Yeah, that it kind of makes up for it having bad toughness here.
Mm-hmm.
That it gets the shield counter. So let's look at what you're doing with the shield counters here. You got a 2/1 flash flyer that comes with the shield counter. You've got an instant speed effect that drops the shield counter and you scry, which I actually limited resources with down on that one. I actually think that one's going to be better than they think. But anyways, Dapper Shieldmate. You can notice how these things are costed. Also, like maybe how powerful shield counters ended up being when they tested them. Right. This is a 2/2 for 4. That enters with the shield counter. It does attack as a 4/2.
Right.
But you got a Sanctuary Warden at Mythic, which enters with 2 shield counters. She's really doing it. And whenever she enters the battlefield or attacks, you can remove a counter from a creature or planeswalker you control. And if you do, you draw a card and you create a token. So that's like a little counters matter build around if you happen to get
Much
it.
exiling is there here?
There's some. It's a modern set, so it's about the same as the last several sets. It's gonna be annoying though, right? Like you're not gonna have a ton of it.
Yeah, because like you want to trade and get it off the board or something, but it stays around and
Yeah, yeah.
just
It
like
really makes
they're
blocking
losing.
annoying, right? Because
Yeah.
something where you would normally trade, they're gonna come out ahead. They're just losing their shield counter.
Right.
So also these things that ping for 1, like there's some things that make little 1/1 devils that when they die they ping. It's actually good, right? Because the devil, either they block the devil and they lose the shield counter, or they, the devil's ping can remove the shield counter. Wind shield agent, wing shield agent. 2/3 enters with the shield counter, and when it attacks, up to one other target creature gains flying until end of turn. That's looking pretty good to me. Those things that lift stuff into the air can be good. I mean, a lot of times maybe this is only going to enable 1 attack. You're going to want to save it for when you need it, maybe. I don't know what you're thinking on the strategy.
We have the double striker there. That's a signpost.
Yeah. Right. Well, that can get in 1 really good attack. They block it with an X3 or whatever. They lose their X3, and it loses the shield counter. Broker's Veteran's a 2/1 that dies and leaves a shield counter. Exotic Pets. I really love this card. I don't know. That's a 3 mana instant. It creates 2 1/1s that can't be blocked. Blue fish creature tokens. And if you have different kinds of counters on your creatures when you play it, they're going to get some of those counters. Like you get to put the same counter on them.
So, you get another shield counter, huh?
So you got a lot of shield counters running around. You probably get a shield counter, and then we got connive creatures in these colors too. So you're probably going to be able to get a +1/+1 counter. So you can have 1 2/2 fish and 1 shielded fish, or
you only get 1 shield counter. You don't get like a shield counter on all your shield creatures.
I don't think so. For each kind of counter among creatures you control, put a counter of that kind on either of those tokens.
Yeah, so you'd probably put a shield counter on one of your fishes, I guess, right?
You'd put the +1 and the shield counter on the same one, probably.
Okay.
But then you have 3 power unblockable.
Yeah, it works out that way.
And then
that's like
if you can get some other counters going, you get those too.
Yeah. And it's an instant speed. You can flash it in.
Yeah. Works with the creature fall cabaret stuff that you weren't paying
I don't
attention
think
to.
it's great, but it's probably gonna.
There's one archetype I think it works nicely, and we'll get to that. Titan of Industry is a cool mythic, 7/7 for 7. ETBs, you choose 2 among destroy artifact or enchantment, gain 5 life, create a 4/4 Rhino Warrior token, and put a shield counter on a creature you control. Voice of the Vermin is another 2/2 that enters with a shield counter, but it can attack as a 4/4. So just like strictly better than the Dapper Shieldmate. It can also buff stuff when it attacks. It is uncommon to the Dapper Shieldmate's common. Rock's Pummeler, 6/3. As long as it has a shield counter on it, it has trample. So again, it's kind of like designed for these big attacks, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get the one big attack, they chump to remove the shield counter, and then now it's a 6/3. It's kind of vulnerable to blocks. But Celestial Regulator is a 2/3. When it enters the battlefield, choose target creature you don't control and tap it. If you control a creature with a counter on it, which will be very easy in these colors, it's frozen for the next untap step. And then we saw Metropolis Angel earlier, which lets you draw cards when you attack with creatures with counters on them. Say your exotic pets.
Okay.
So the other hidden but not really so hidden archetype is 4 and 5 color soup. You have these kind of trap mythics like Meeting of the Five, which don't play it. You can draft it if you want, because it is a mythic, but don't play it. Not good. Widespread Thieving, kind of a similar one. Although actually, whenever you cast a multicolored spell, create a treasure token, you can play that in these decks. But yeah, your big bomb mythics like this, Lord Xander. 6/6 for 7 mana. When it enters the battlefield, target opponent discards half the cards in their hand. When it attacks, defending player mills half their library, which is just ridiculously strong in limited. And when it dies, target opponent sacrifices half the non-land permanents they control rounded down. This is a house. If you draft this, you're going to try to stretch your mana base whatever way you can to play it.
Oh, you want to discard that and bring it back? You want to cheap?
You want to do the reanimator thing with it?
Yeah, I
mean,
so.
The 5 mana reanimator spell. That's your way to do it. Hostile Takeover. Well, I guess my point in putting a lot of these on there, right? Like, so all your powerful, there's a bunch of cycles of powerful 3-color rares. So like there's Ascendancy for each 3 colors. I put Broker's Ascendancy, I think is the best Ascendancy, right? You can take that, put that in your deck with Lord Xander. 5 color, but you don't care because it's really good. Hostile Takeover, up to 1 target creature has base power and toughness 1/1. One other target creature has base power and toughness 4/4, and then it deals 3 damage to each creature. So that's kind of like a board wipe. Stuff that makes treasure is going to be really good in this deck, right? You got your Black Market Tycoon as a rare, which is a 2/2 that taps to make treasures. Never mind that you're going to take damage if you leave them around for too long. Courier's Briefcase has this mode at the bottom, which this deck will be able to unlock. Well, any deck will be able to unlock that makes enough treasure, but pay Wooburg, sacrifice it, draw 3 cards. This Rogues Gallery card, you can try to live the dream of returning 5 creatures from your graveyard because you have 5 creatures that have 5 different color pips.
I don't think it's a dream.
You'd say it's not a dream?
Well, not if you're playing all these, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you saw every
deck. I mean,
every 3-color pair has signpost at least 2 signpost uncommon creatures.
There's a 5-color like reanimator deck likely.
Yeah, you're seeing the pieces already for that.
Yeah, probably.
I think you just take fixing and all the powerful cards.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, of course, all the powerful cards you're going to have, like, there's all those 3-color exile cards that common that are great reanimator targets.
What was the loot mechanic with the abilities?
The connive mechanic. Yeah. Yeah, there's tons of ways to get stuff in your graveyard. It's definitely doable.
That's kind of like condensing you down to.
So you got the common fixing lands, Evolving Door. lets you sacrifice creatures, count the colors of the sacrificed creature, then search your library for a creature card that's exactly that many colors plus 1. Generally, I would think this is not a very good ability, but you could probably trade up a lot of your 2-pip creatures into some of these 3-pip bombs.
Oh. But like it's 3 to cast it.
It's 3 to cast it, and you got to sacrifice creature. It's not that great.
I mean,
but you could do it while you're reanimating. I mean, it's not that hard. It's not any harder than discarding a creature and drawing your reanimation spell.
It's a bad rare though.
What do you think of this Scuttling Butler? It's a 4/1 for 3 mana. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control 2 or more multicolored permanents, it gains double strike.
Oh yeah, that's good, dude. It's gonna happen.
I think it's gonna be easy to get that.
Sure.
It's gonna be not the best card if you don't have
that's
that. I guess it blocks.
Jump. But is your jump guy's a single color?
Yeah, jump guy's blue.
But well, you have the art of you have the flying card that's be decent early on. I stood out. The 2 mana that turns your creature into flying.
Man, that what?
Don't you have isn't there a enchant creature or an equipment that turns a creature into flying in the set?
There's one that makes it unblockable if it's attacking alone. Oh yeah,
okay.
there's the equipment that you can pop on.
Equipment, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure. So they're not listed as official archetypes in the Wizards stuff, but like I watched something with one of the Wizards designers, this guy named Gavin Verhey, and he said it's totally intentional. You can build like the 2-color decks. Like they've given you they've given you signpost, 2 signpost uncommons and a signpost common for the 2-color decks as well. For all the allied color pairs. So green-white is centered around citizens. You got an equipment that attaches for 1 to a citizen. It's +2/+1 and trample. Darling of the Masses we saw before. Pump citizens and it makes citizens. And the Civil Servant we saw before gets pumped by citizens.
Okay, those were the cards I was spacing out on.
Yeah. Well, okay. You want to look at them for one more second?
I just looked at them. No.
Yeah. I mean, this is the one you really want to concentrate on. I think the other 2 are far behind. A 2/4 that buffs all your citizens and when it attacks makes citizens is just one of those things that can kind of run away with the game if it's left unanswered for too long.
Be good, yeah.
Just pumping out a 2/1 every turn. Broker's Initiate is a citizen. It's an 0/4 for 1. I'm not really high on that one. Cabaret Initiate is a citizen. Still not super high. It's a 1/2 for 2, but at least the ability is 3 and whatever. You got Civic Gardener is a 2/2 for 2. This is your citizen bear here. It also has upside. Skycrier is a 1/1 flying lifelink citizen. Probably have to be in a really weird position to use the other ability where you and target opponent each draw a card, but I mean a 1/1 flying lifelink for 2.
Yeah, if you can build them up too.
And it wears that citizen equipment and whatever.
Yeah.
High-Rise Sawjack is your standard green reach creature here, is also a citizen instead of a spider. Speakeasy Server we talked about is a 3/3 flyer that comes down. You gain a life for each other creature, and it's also a citizen. Cleanup Crew. This is one of the mythic uncommons, I think. It's your honey mammoth of the set here. It's just a 6/6. Comes down. You can either choose to destroy an artifact, destroy an enchantment, exile a card from a graveyard, or gain 4 life. Most of the time, you're probably going to gain 4 life, but those other abilities are going to be super relevant when they're relevant, you know? And a 6/6 body is ridiculously big, as you can see. Like, we're just not seeing creatures of that size in general. Angelic Observer is kind of a citizen payoff. I'm not super high on this one. It's a 3/3 flyer that costs 1 less for each citizen you control. If you really reliably think you can pump out the citizens, I guess play this.
But maybe flying's going to be good in the set.
I mean, what you happy if you have 2 citizens in play when you cast this? So it's a 3/3 for
Oh.
4.
I mean, no, not really. It doesn't. It's going to be hard to get it down real fast.
Yeah.
Like you're happy when you get it out for 3. Like if you were to go citizen turn 1, citizen turn 2, you can't even do that.
Yeah, well, you can do. There's some things that make 2 citizens.
Double. If that happens and you can get it out on turn 3, then it's good.
Yeah.
Like good.
Yeah.
If you're not built around that, then it's just like an average like C grade flyer.
Gathering Throng is the catch-em-all. It's also a citizen. Luxurious Libation. The interesting thing to point out about this, you can do this for 0 and just make a 1/1 citizen token.
Yeah, sure.
At instant speed. You know, so you need that extra 1 pump to play your Angelic and Observer next turn or whatever. Crowbar is another equipment that comes in, makes a citizen. It's going to give +1/+1, and then you can tap, sacrifice the Crowbar to destroy an artifact or enchantment. And we've got Take to the Streets, which is Citizen Anthem. Creatures you control get +2/+2 until end of turn. Citizens you control get additional +1/+1 and gain Vigilance. Not super high on that one, but you know, maybe if citizen decks are a thing, like you're drafting 1 or 2 of these.
Oh yeah, you have to have a good wide payoff in the
That's your
citizens.
finisher.
Yeah, that is for sure the finisher. Much better than Angelic Observer.
So blue-white counters matter evasion seems to be. I mean, I guess it's counters matter technically, but I put evasion also, right? Because you got can't be blocked, flying for these signposts. We talked about all these already. The fish that are unblockable that get counters. This thing that pays you off when you attack with stuff with counters on it. You draw cards, and the flyer that can tap stuff down, which is like a pretty good common. 2/3 flyer for 3 and freeze something. So here's an interesting one. Backstreet Bruiser. This is your standard 3/3 defender for 2 mana in blue. As long as there are 2 or more counters among creatures you control, it can attack. I know you've sometimes liked those kind of like walls that can attack strategies.
Yeah, because it can hold down if you're trying to get to the late game. So
there might be some control decks or things that want it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it'll fit in here or not.
I don't know. I doubt it.
I mean, it is kind of a traditional Flyers deck thing, right? Just play the 3/3 on the ground. It's hard to attack through while you just get in the air.
You don't mind trading it off, whatever.
Yeah.
It holds down several attacks and then trades off to something.
We talked about Sanctuary Warden. There is this Angel Buildaround here. It's a 2/2 flying vigilance. Each other angel you control enters the battlefield an additional +1/+1 counter on it for each angel you already control, which is like ridiculously strong. It is a legendary creature, and it taps to add white to cast only angel spells.
How many angels are there?
So you can build, if you open this, pick 1, pack 1, you can go hard on angels.
How many angels are there though?
There's a couple.
There never is that many though.
There never are that many, yeah. We got the Illuminator Virtuoso, which can connive and get +1 counters. We got this 2/1 flash that gets shield counter. Your bread and butter, if you just need counters, 1/1 backup agent comes in, can put a counter on one of your flyers, or a counter on itself. So it's just a 2/2 for 2. But again, there's those counter synergies. Fairy Vandal fits into this archetype really well too, because it's going to be getting +1/+1 counters. All the connive stuff, Hypnotic Grifter. There's this little trick here, slip out back, puts a +1/+1 counter on a creature and it phases out. So this is just, leave up 1 blue, blank some removal, and you got your counter. Here's your Boon of Safety, you get the shield counter. Security Bypass, get multiple connive triggers, and Echo Inspector, the flyer that connives.
Yep.
Bread and butter limited stuff with the flyers and counters, but I think it probably will come together as a decent deck. This one, however, blue-black graveyard mana values. The theme of this is, if you look at Snooping Newsy, 5 or more mana values among cards in your graveyard. Or Syndicate Infiltrator also has that text. So Tainted Indulgence is going to you draw 2 cards, then discard a card unless there are 5 or more mana values among cards in your graveyard. There's a big payoff there. If you can get 5 different mana values in your graveyard, you get to draw the card instead of discard. And it's going to help you get there before then. Kind of meh. Now you got the lands that sacrifice themselves on ETB.
Okay.
So that's, and plus, you know, connives or whatever. It's going to be easy to get the lands in your graveyard. So that's mana value 0. And then you maybe have some 1-drops or 2-drops. You'll have lots of 2-drops and 3-drops. And then, you know, 4, you gotta get something bigger up on the curve. Maybe if you're right, the Reanimator deck is really a thing. You're gonna have a bunch of like 5, 6, 7-drop creatures that you're trying to reanimate in this deck, and that is where you hit your 5 mana values. But you saw there's just a lot of like incidental exile cards from graveyards running around, and like it's gonna be, I think it's gonna be so much setup for not much payoff to get 5 mana values in your graveyard.
Then have them it kind of easily ruined.
I could be wrong. But like literally, I didn't even finish like trying to fill out the slide because I couldn't find enough like stuff that I really cared about to try and build this deck.
Yeah, I can.
You
see
know,
that.
you've got this mythic is great. The All-Seeing Arbiter enters the battlefield or attacks. You draw 2 cards, then discard a card, and whenever you discard a card, target creature and opponent controls get -X -0 until your next turn, where X is the number of different mana values among cards in your graveyard. I mean, that starts working immediately, right? You don't have to have 5 different mana values. And here's your Reanimator spell, Graveyard Shift. It has flash if you have 5 different mana values. You know, but then you're taking something out of your graveyard. You might be losing your 5th mana value after you do that. Maestro's Initiate, you can exile it from your graveyard. Again, like hurting your mana values in your graveyard if you use that ability.
Yeah. It's not
a good archetype. Don't play blue black. If somebody figures it out, I'd be happy to be proven wrong. But
someone will. I mean, but it's just like easily tampered with. It's like string theory. It's everything's got to go your way or something.
Yeah. Green-red treasures are just naturally powerful. You don't really need to do much to build around them. There's this card, Stimulus Package, I'm not too high on. It's 4 mana enchantment. Comes in, makes 2 treasures, and you can sacrifice treasures to turn them into citizen tokens. Okay, I don't really want to pay 4 mana for 2 1/1s. But there are a couple things that just make treasures. Like there's a mythic card that lets you tap a land to make a treasure. So if you got that, maybe
that's like a last pick in like pack 3. Constantly.
You'll be able to wheel these stimulus packages.
Oh yeah, if for some reason you wanted that.
Similarly, Security Rocks, you can cast it for 2 if you only spend treasure mana. But how often are you gonna like have 2 treasures, but not be able to pay 4?
That hard to do. 2 treasures.
Yeah, but not like.
Well, not in turn 4. Yeah, I guess, but it's not.
Turn 4, you're gonna maybe.
It's good. It's good as is though.
5 4 for 4. Yeah.
Well, how about this? I mean, you play something else and you cast it with treasures.
Yeah.
Like,
well, that's your best case scenario, I think, right? Like turn 3 or 4, you're double spelling. You're getting a 5/4 and something else.
Yeah.
Like that's a house for sure.
Do you drop that little red 1-drop menace?
And then Jetmir's or Jetmir's Fixer. You can pump it, and then if mana from a treasure was spent to activate an ability, the pump it turns into a counter instead.
Sweet.
That seems pretty good. So yeah, treasures. There's a cool little vehicle. When it deals combat damage to a player, you create a treasure token for each artifact they control. It's more of a commander card, but you know, turn the tide on them. Professional Facebreaker, you can sacrifice a treasure to exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn, and whenever one or more of your creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. The total treasure build around.
Yeah,
you got the enabler and the payoff. We talked about Sticky Fingers, your new favorite aura. Exhibition Magician comes down, makes a treasure.
Fun.
Glittermonger, they priced this at 4 mana. 1/4 tap, make a treasure token. It's a good blocker, and you'll just be sitting around piling up treasure with it.
Oh, for sure.
You're gonna like this one, big score. 3 in a red. There's additional cost to cast this. Discard a card. Draw 2. Create 2 treasure. This was like, what was that card in Kaldheim? Unexpected Windfall that you would jam with.
The 2 treasures is pretty lit.
And this is a better casting cost. It's 3 in a red instead of 2 red.
Yep.
I think a lot of decks will just take this, right? It's
well,
if you can cast that, then you get your other 2 colors, right? You've got red, and you got your other 2 colors to cast your 3 pip. Big card. Goldhound, we talked about. Glittering Stockpile. We talked about a lot of these in the section of the treasure. Here's that thing, the artifact. Lands you control have tap, create a treasure token. I mean, it is 6 mana, do nothing the turn it comes down. But then you just got infinite ramp.
Mm-hmm.
Gala Greeters is a 1/1. Whenever a creature enters, you can make a treasure token. Pretty darn good.
Put a counter on it, or you gain 2 life. That's okay.
Here's a common vehicle. Sacrifice a treasure, it becomes an artifact creature, so it's just like an alternate crew cost, and it's just a 6/6. I just don't like it. Doesn't have any. It doesn't have any evasion.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe in this deck it's good. Maybe if you just got so many treasures lying around, you'd rather crew this with a treasure.
I don't think so. I don't think you play it.
Black-red Sacrifice. You will definitely be playing this one. Your uncommon ones are Fatal Grudge, which is a sorcery. You have to sacrifice a permanent to cast it, a non-land permanent. Hopefully your opponent's creature. And each opponent chooses a permanent they control that shares a type with the sacrificed permanent and sacrifices it. And you also draw a card. So, cash in your token, make them sacrifice a creature. Or, as I say, try to steal their creature and make them also sacrifice another creature. Forge Boss deals 2 damage every time you sacrifice a creature. Fortunately, does not trigger with the land thing. The lands that go to the graveyard. And Body Dropper, whenever you sacrifice another creature, it gets a +1/+1 counter. And it also has the sack outlet on it. So you can pay 2 mana, sacrifice another creature, and give it Menace. That's a sack outlet and a payoff. Really just going to be looking for this uncommon involuntary employment. That's what this deck really wants. To steal a creature, make a treasure. We talked about that. You get the Pugnacious Pugilist that sacrifices itself. So that will trigger all your sacrifice stuff, like the Pyre Sledge Arsonist and the guy that deals 2. You got stuff that's good to sacrifice, like Riveteer's Requisitioner that dies into a treasure token. Also self-sacrifices with Blitz. You got the Casualty sacrifice stuff. You got this Unlucky Witness. When it dies, exile the top 2 cards of your library until your next end step. You can play one of those cards. Yeah, just, you know, the usual stuff. Corrupt Court Official is the 1/1, makes your opponent discard. And it's good sack fodder.
Yeah, this deck, the black-red always just is able to get by on.
Black-red also is going to have a lot of the good removal.
Yeah, the removal. I mean, it always gets by on that.
So, always like to see if there's a mill deck possible in a format. This one, you can do it. You got this common removal in black, which probably won't be super sought after. At least it got a lower grade from limited resources, so most people follow them. But target player mills 3 cards. I think most of the time you're supposed to use it to mill yourself because of all the graveyard strategies, but you get enough of these and you get stuff that like loops instants and sorceries, you can mill your opponent out. Skycrier, I just thought it would be hilarious if you could somehow make you and your opponent each draw a card and you have more cards in your library somehow and mill them out that way. There is actual legit rares like cut your losses. That Lord Xander, of course, we talked about, that mills half the library when it attacks. This is another one. Casualty 2, target player mills half their library rounded down. So you play that, you sack a creature. Now they've lost 3/4 of their library. And limited, you're going to win that game real
not
real
necessarily.
often.
Not at 6, not at
Not at 6
turn
mana, you don't
6.
think?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I mean, if you're building around it.
I mean, are you building around mill in this set? I mean, that's the
No,
question
it's
you're
not
asking.
it's not a real
Yeah,
deck.
so
It's a meme deck for sure. This is a real deck, Voltron. You got evasive creatures, you got your exotic pets, you got double strike creatures, and then you got decent equipment and stuff to put on it. You got ways to protect it with Slip Out the Back and Boon of Safety. Even this, like, Rafine's Guidance is an aura that you can replay if it dies. So yeah, play a small evasive creature, suit it up, protect it, go to town.
Yeah.
Need to say much about that. Life gain.
figure
So there's a
you're
lot of life gain in this set. There's really
Mhm.
only one payoff. And it's at 5 mana, so I don't recommend actually building this deck. But again, if you want to do it for the memes, you get a bunch of Vampire Scriveners, which are 2/2 flying for 5.
Ouch.
When you gain life during your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on it. When you lose life during your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on it. You got to try to set up so the turn it comes down, you're gonna, get a life linker or something in there so you can gain, and then I don't know what you do to lose life.
No, thanks.
Speakeasy server. So this is the. Oh no, that's not the one. Where is it? Is it on this page? Inspiring Overseer. Did we talk about this one yet? This is common. 3 mana, 2/1 flying.
No, we didn't. That's awesome.
Enter the battlefield, gain a life, draw a card. Look, if you get enough of these in your deck, you can run as many Vampire Scriveners as you want, because you're just going to win from playing Inspiring Overseers. And then they'll be triggering all your Vampire Scriveners.
That's
the Tavern Swindlers, I guess, how
should
you
be an uncommon, and then
you double trigger your Scrivener, right? Pay 3 life, flip a coin. If you win, you gain 6. So you pay the 3, you gain the 6. So you double trigger on that. You do that every turn. Of course, only if you win the flip. But yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of incidental life gain is good anyway. You can combine that with the mill deck, right? Just build like a 50 card deck that's just a little bigger than your opponent's deck and just gain a bunch of life and draw them out. All right, let's talk about the removal. I put this equipment here. This is one actually that has caused a lot of debate. See what you think of this. 1 mana, equips for 1, and then equipped creature has 1. This creature deals 1 damage to target creature that's blocking it.
So it's unlimited. It can just kind of pump its way up and kill a creature.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, that makes it easy to attack. It makes that creature really just like a lot more dangerous. So yeah.
Makes it hard to block.
Right.
It's not guaranteed. Good on first strike and double strike too, right? Because you can pump a bunch and then they finish off with the double strike.
Sure.
Anyways, kind of put it as removal. It's not really removal, but
no, it's not removal. It's just like it just makes the combat attack through. It's for an aggro deck. It's like that. It's in that red green deck that's dropping all that stuff.
Guess it's a something to put your treasures into. Ominous Parcel. This is a little bit of mana fixing, and then if not, you don't need to go sacrifice it to get a land. You can pay 5 tap and deals 4 damage to target creature, instant speed. There was one of these in Dominaria that was pretty good. That just holding up that 4 damage instant speed.
Yeah, it's definitely, it makes a lot of decks. 3 colors.
I think, you're probably going to prioritize most removal ahead of it, but
and better like fixing, but it's like
1 mana.
You You're like might be all over the map when you're trying to build these 3-color decks. Like you might run short, and it just feels like an easy piece to get in a lot of decks.
Right, yeah, it's going to help you with your land, or it's going to be removal. White has a pacify, but they can pay 7, and then you have to lose the aura, but you get to draw a card. Kill shot, 3 mana, destroy target attacking creature. Also at 3 mana, although it could be 1 mana if it targets a red creature, knockout blow, 4 damage to attacking or blocking creature, and you gain 2 life. You'll notice there is a whole cycle, one for each color, of stuff that gets a discount if it targets an opposing color. Removal, and this is whites. And then here's your exile effect at common. Exile target non-land permanent. Its controller creates a treasure token. So the limited resources argument on this one is that by the time you're spending 5 mana to exile something, giving your opponent a treasure is not that big of an effect. To me, it just seems like a serious drawback to give anybody a treasure in this set.
Yeah. I don't know.
But maybe this is a sealed card, but not so much a draft card. I don't know.
With the shield stuff going on, the exile seems
that's true.
Maybe relevant.
Could be better.
Yeah.
Could wind up being more relevant. Blue, I actually found 5 things I would consider somewhat removal. We got Witness Protection, which is as cheap as this effect has been. This is a hilarious card, by the way. Have you seen this one?
No, I haven't seen any of the cards still.
Enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a green-white citizen creature token with base power and toughness named Legitimate Business Person. The thing about this and the white aura, like, there's so many things that sacrifice creatures for value with the casualty running around and stuff. I think these kind of go down in a lot of ways.
It's weird that they have it as a legitimate business person.
Isn't that hilarious?
After it loses all abilities, it's like done with life or something. It's like
yeah, it's a gangland
person,
a gangland
loser.
joke, right?
Like he's no longer part of the gang. He's just like a legitimate loser business person.
I love the witness protection too. It's like this spell that puts a face over him. It looks like somebody else. Like that's like their version of plastic surgery in this world. I don't know. I mean, they're gonna spend 7 mana, play that Lord Xander, and you turn it into a 1/1 with no abilities.
Yeah,
it could be
for 1 mana. You know,
for 1 mana, it's as cheap as it's ever going to be.
Yeah.
So if it's good, this is going to be the set that it's good in.
It's the time.
Citizen type actually does matter, though. Also, that could be a drawback if you're giving your Cabaretti opponent another citizen.
What does it do to all the shield stuff then? Those guys
they still have the shield on it, right?
They lose their abilities, so yeah.
They lose their abilities, but they don't lose counters, right? So if it's got a couple +1/+1 counters from the connive, also, like, then it's still a 3/3 or 4/4 or something.
Gotcha.
Rooftop Nuisance, 3 mana sorcery, casualty 1, which is a good casualty cost. Tap target creature, it doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step, draw a card. I guess cash in your 1/1 for a card and freezing down your creature. Maybe this is an aggro way to play this. Seems a bit overcosted to me.
Yeah, I don't know.
The color hate card here is Out of the Way, which is 4 mana or 2 if it targets a green permanent, and it returns that permanent to owner's hand. It's a bounce, basically, and you draw a card. 4 mana instant speed bounce, draw a card is very good. So I like that one. Run Out of Town is the common 4 mana thing, and it's going to bounce to the top or bottom of the opponent's library.
Bounce may be relevant because of like the treasures and the build up to cast some of the 3-color cards.
That's true.
Bounce it might be.
And the shield counters, right? That's a way to get around the shield counters.
Yeah. I guess.
And then another hilarious gangster themed one, Sleep with the Fishes. 2 blue, enchant creature. When it enters the battlefield, tap enchanted creature, and you create a 1/1 blue fish creature token with this creature can't be blocked. And then enchanted creature doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. So that could be casualty fodder, or that could be the unblockable creature that you start suiting up with your equipment and things. Plus, it's freezing something down. But again, that's that thing. There's a lot of sacrifice outlets. So these aura effects are less good. Black, as usual, has tons of removal. Grisly Sigil we talked about, which deals 1 damage unless you're doing it a second time, which mostly you're going to trigger with your casualty. So first hit, it's going to pop the shield counter by dealing a damage, and then the second hit would finish off the creature. Incriminate is a sacrifice effect for 2. I don't know. What do you think? Two target creatures controlled by the same player. That player sacrificed one of them, i.e., they sacrifice the worst one.
I don't know.
So it's 2 mana to destroy your opponent's second best creature.
Yeah. I don't know.
You can combine it with other.
It's better than them just like being able to sack off like a token or something.
Yeah.
Some of the bigger, the wet situations, but it still feels like
Combine it with other sacrifice
they,
effects, but
yeah, and if they only have one, it's still the same, right? So you just
well, it doesn't
have
say
to
choose
choose
up to
2.
2 target creatures, so I don't think you can even cast it unless you have
With one.
2 creatures.
That's what I was kind of wondering. So no, it's not that good.
Unless you want to sacrifice your own creature to get your sacrifice payoffs. Maybe there's some weird self-sacrifice
No, then that
synergy.
player sacrifices one of them, so then they choose your. No, that's not good. This one.
Extract Truth. This is a discard that can also force an enchantment to be sacrificed. They're giving black a little bit more ways to deal with enchantments. Not super relevant, but maybe a sideboard card. Murder is in this set. Instant speed, destroy target creature. That's going to be a high pick.
The Extract the Truth is actually.
It always is.
Murder's back, yes.
Yeah. Again, shield counters, right? So shield counters deal with this pretty well.
Right.
Maybe murder is a little less good than we're used to. Also, double black pip is like not nothing in this set.
Yeah.
Love this creature, Night Clubber. I think we talked about this before.
Yeah, it's good.
Hitting. You saw how many 1/1 tokens now, right? Like,
there's a lot more. Yeah, sure.
I think you're just always gonna, if you see this, you're always gonna grab it. If you're in these colors. Similarly, Rafine Silencer. Baseline, when it dies, is gonna take a X1 with it, and if you can connive it up to 2, it's going to take an X2 with it, and gets around shield counters. Deal gone bad, gets around shield counters. I think maybe I like this card more than other people. And then our Color Hate card costs 3 less if it targets a white creature. Target creature gets -4/-4 until end of turn. It is sorcery speed. Great name for it too. The Gangland set. Whack. Anyways, you see all these in the same pack. Which one are you picking? You just take murder?
I don't know. Maybe you take.
You take whack.
You take the clubber.
The clubber?
Right. Yeah. I think that's probably the best of those.
I think you might be right. Red also, of course, has tons of removal. Kind of a lightning bolt. It's a sorcery speed, and it can only hit creatures and planeswalkers, but strangle, 3 damage. I think you're going to be seeing a lot of this. I think that's why 3 toughness versus 4 toughness and above is going to be a big deal in this set. Because it's just such a tempo loss, right? When somebody can strangle your creature. You spent 4 or 5 mana on, they kill it for 1.
Mm-hmm.
Light 'em up also is going to take out a bunch of small creatures. Because you can double it up. Call in the professional. Players can't gain life this turn. So kind of relevant against all the incidental life gain things. Damage can't be prevented this turn, relevant against all the shield counters. And it deals 3 damage to any target. Again, here's that 3 number. I think that's going to be key. Pyre Sledge Arsonist can be repeated removal. Again, hits lots of X ones, right? If you're sacrificing 1 permanent, it's going to be the modal amount of things you sacrifice. Then you tap it, deal 1 damage to any target. So you can just be picking off X ones with it.
Yeah.
It's a not as good Prodigal Sorcerer. The color hate card for red is Torch Breath. Costs 2 less if it targets a blue permanent, and it can't be countered. Deals X damage to a creature or planeswalker. I mean, I think you just take as many of these as you get. Instant speed. Pugnacious Pugilist. Put this in here. It is uncommon. If you blitz it, then you're definitely getting in probably. Well, I guess not definitely. If they have instant speed removal, you're not definitely getting in, but you're likely getting in. It's attacking. It's creating a tap and attacking 1/1 Red Devil creature token that when it dies, it deals 1 damage. So again, X1s are in danger. I don't know how many people will be playing Pugnacious Pugilist, but I guess if it is really relevant to remove X1s, maybe lots will. And then your standard red sorcery that deals 5 damage or blows up an artifact.
The Pugilist is alright.
Yeah, it's decent.
Yeah.
Green gets the fight spell we talked about, prize fight, instant speed, leaves behind a treasure. The color hate card for green is X damage to target creature or planeswalker where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. So it's like a punch. Notable, right? They can't blow this out as easily. So you got a couple 3/3s or something. So you plan if they remove 1, the other one still deals the damage. I don't know how relevant that will be, but Broken Wings is back. Destroy an artifact, enchantment, or creature with flying. Looks like sideboard and then bring it in out of the sideboard to me, but because it's not like Kamigawa where you have so many artifacts and enchantments that you want to main deck these things. I don't know. If you really want to spend 3 mana to blow up your opponent's treasure, you can do that. And then Cleanup Crew we talked about can come down and destroy an artifact or enchantment or exile a card from a graveyard, which are, not always relevant modes, but when they are, they're good.
Yeah, always does something worthwhile.
And then multicolor, all the charms kind of have a removal mode. We talked about Lagrella, the confusing Lagrella. You can come down and kind of exile something. And then Fatal Grudge and Celestial Regulator are also kind of removal abilities. We talked about all of these before, but just kind of to see how it shakes down in terms of, what colors have more. You might be surprised to see the Broker's Charm, Lagrella, and Celestial Regulator kind of in that Bant nexus for removal. You expect the black-red. Combat tricks. If your white opponent has 1 mana open, beware of Boon of Safety. If they have 2 mana open, beware of Refuse to Yield and Revelation of Power. 3 mana open could be a kill shot or a knockout blow, so be wary of attacking or blocking. 4 mana, they can Swooping Protector. So notably, this comes in with a shield counter, so it can block an X2 and not die. Instant speed flash. Not much to say about this. What do you think of these abilities with untap a creature +2/+7?
Yeah, sure. It works both ways.
Certainly going to survive damage, right? +7 is huge in this format.
You like want to force, like if you go into a white deck and they're attacking weird, you almost want to force that trick on their attack as opposed to them catching you off guard with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can use it offensively too.
Right, but you'd almost rather have that happen as opposed to you're like, okay, I'll let this creature trade in, and it's best as a defensive move.
Blue, slip out the back we talked about, +1/+1 counter, phase out. Too bad that's uncommon. I really like that card. Fairy Vandal does have flash, so it can come down, eat a 1/1. Majestic Metamorphosis. I think you're going to like this one. 4/4, until end of turn, target artifact or creature becomes a 4/4 angel artifact creature and gains flying, draw a card. So it's like Suit Up from Kamigawa, except it's 4/4 flying instead of a 4/5 not flying. And you can use it on an artifact. And there's going to be lots of treasures and things running around. No comment on that.
Yeah.
Talked about
I
psionic.
don't know how many artifacts you're playing. I mean, it's a maneuver.
I mean, yeah, I don't know how many artifacts the blue decks are going to have. I mean, there's some equipment, there's some various things. You're going to have creatures. The ability to just pop a treasure up into the air and fly for 4.
Yeah, okay.
Finish a game.
Yeah, I mean, sure.
And you draw a card off that.
And you draw, yeah. It makes the deck.
I think there will be uses for it.
It's like definitely treasure artifact heavy decks will play that.
So that's a 3 mana. Psionic Snoop we talked about, that can come down, connive, become a 1/4 and eat your X1. Out of the way is the color hate for blue. Return target non-land permanent to owner's hand. Draw a card. We talked about that as removal, but you can also use it as a combat trick, right? They double block on something, you bounce it. Goes back to their hand. Run out of town, similar deal. They double block, you bounce it. You get blown out in your combat. So beware of opponents, blue opponents with lots of mana open. They could also be leaving it open for counter spells. They're very tricky, those blue opponents. Combat tricks in black. Fake your own death. I don't know how much people will be running this card. Probably not a ton, but good to be aware of it. 2 mana. Your opponent makes an attack that seems a little weird with 2 mana open. If they make it with 3 mana open, watch out double blocking. One of your blockers is going to get murdered and the other is going to get eaten. 4 mana, similar deal with Deal Gone Bad. And then Graveyard Shift. If they've got 5 or more mana values among cards in your graveyard, definitely be looking out for that with the black decks. They could reanimate something big and block with it, which is like the best thing to do with an instant speed reanimation spell, honestly. This is maybe the best payoff from the 5 or more mana values, at least at common or uncommon.
Well, it's not instant split.
No, if it has 5 or more mana values, you can cast it as though it has flash.
Okay.
See, look, I don't just search instant, you know.
Yeah.
I try to dig through the set and really look for things, anything that could be a combat trick. Well, red's all instants here, but +1/+0, first strike, scry 1 red mana. This goes in your red aggro deck. And you got antagonize +4/+3 until end of turn for 2 mana. Put that on your double striker. Combat tricks in red. We talked about this. Removal. Deal X to a creature or planeswalker. And call in a professional. Removal, but also relevant. It's instant. And the shield counter thing. It even says in parentheses, shield counters don't prevent this damage as they're removed. Combat tricks in green. We talked about For the Family. +2/+2 unless you control 4 or more creatures. Then it's +4/+4, which seems pretty easy in Cabaretti. I don't know about the other green decks. Prize Fight, which instant speed fight spell. Those can always be a blowout in combat. Luxurious Libation. This looks like could be pretty rough in combat. You're going to win a combat, and then notably, you get the +X/+X, then create the token. So you can't use this defensively, really, unless you're trying to, trade for an X1. But it would be interesting if you created the token, then get to give target creature +X/+X.
Right.
Then you could make a really big one-time really big token. Broken Wings, maybe relevant, blow up the equipment on something and win the combat. Warm Welcome, probably not super relevant, but can at instant speed make a 1/1 token. And this Most Wanted is a flash enchantment. So +2/+1, that could win a combat you thought you were going to trade. Or they thought they would just be a trade.
Yeah.
And the Bouncer's Beatdown, which is a bite or a punch spell at instant speed. Also be a super blowout. All right, here's my picks for top commons. Colorless, there aren't a ton of commons to pick from. Gilded Pinions, I think you agreed with me before that this looks pretty decent. 2 mana, drops a treasure token, hangs around, gives something flying in the late game.
Yeah. Cool.
Gives the the three pip card that you cast.
Yeah.
Flying. I guess extra good in like the green based decks that have the big ground creatures.
Yeah. There's
like a 4/5, reach trample guy in red. You could pop that on or something and just have a big flyer. Ominous Parcel. We also talked about that. I think you're in agreement with me on that. It's good flexibility to be able to fix your mana or just hang out and be removal, or probably even better, the threat of removal, right? Like they have to really block. It changes all their blocks if you've got 5 mana open and this sitting on the battlefield.
Sure.
Especially if you got like a first strike creature or something.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't.
Look, there's not a lot of colorless commons to pick from here.
Yeah.
These are
it's more or less making a bunch of decks because it just has a function.
We'll see. I don't think it's going to make a ton of decks. I think there's so much fixing. You're maybe not going to.
I think it's going to make a lot of decks.
I don't know how often you can pick it. And then Quick Draw Dagger. If I was doing a colorless combat tricks section, that would go in it. The flash equipment +1/+1, and the creature gets first strike.
Yes.
Auto attaches, the creature gets first strike. So use it to win a combat. Then it just hangs around and it equips for 1. So +1/+1 equipment for 1. I think there probably is going to be a use for it. The one thing I'll say is that this has been true of a lot of sets recently, but this set in particular with the 3 pip cards, the 3 mana spot on the curve is going to be so thick. Like you're really spoiled for choice with the 3 mana stuff.
Yeah.
Like especially like you got Inspiring Overseer. Like what are you going to play over that at 3 mana? Like nothing.
What are you going to pick over that in most packs?
It's better than a lot of rares in this set. It is ridiculously good.
Yeah.
2/1 flying, gain a life. I mean, you'd still high pick it if it was lose a life and draw a card.
Yeah.
So good. And it's an angel, so you were asking what angels are in them.
Yeah.
There's a common angel. You're not going to, I mean, you're going to have to high pick it. You're not going to see it. There's another one in green we talked about a little bit more. We'll get there. Kill Shot, I'd pick that as the removal, the common removal for a top common. I think that's going to be better than the pacifism effect. I don't know. Maybe the pacifism effect is better, right? If you want to be aggro and you want to be getting in the not blocking thing, this is a much more defensive removal spell.
Yeah.
I just like this instant speed.
I don't think Kill Shot's very good.
Doesn't get through shield counters. Yeah, you might be right. Maybe there will be better white commons than that. And then I picked Speakeasy Server. I think traditionally in limited, these 5 mana flyers that come down, gain you a bunch of life.
Yeah,
are pretty decent.
Yeah, it's decent. Decent plus.
So it's a 3/3 body. 3/3 flying body is not bad. The citizen type is relevant.
The server with the overseer, those are like annoying cards. White's got some powers.
Oh yeah, I think white looks pretty strong in common.
Even in the air, it looks like with evasion, there might be some sky battles going on here.
Blue did not stand out for me like what the top commons are. Really? I think there's probably, 3 other picks you could pick here. Just trying to guess ahead of playing these cards. I
Mm.
thought Run Out of Town, great for tempo, and you can blow people out sometimes with it. And that's sort of the removal I picked. I think actually Majestic Metamorphosis will be a better blowout a lot of times. And then for a creature at common, I like the Obscura Initiate. It's a 2/2 flyer for 3, which is traditionally fine in limited. Plus, you got the upside of it can get lifelink if you got some extra mana hanging out. Black.
Yeah, the 3-drops slam though. I think that was your point earlier.
The 3-drops are very good, right? So this is competing against like the Obscura 3-pip cards and things. Think of all those charms. Although the charms you can cast, you don't necessarily have to cast on 3.
Right.
But the 3-drop creatures are very good in the set. I mean, the limited cards are very good in general. It's kind of ridiculous how strong some of these cards have gotten. So I picked Murder. I kind of like these Girder Goons. It's a 4/4 body for 5, or you can blitz it, and it leaves behind a 2/2, and you draw a card.
Okay.
So, like, I don't know, you think of 4 mana. Remember, you can attack with the 4/4. So it's like Serulf's Packmate, right? That's the 3/3 that draws you a card. This is a 2/2 that draws you a card, but you also got to attack with a 4/4.
It swings, it draws a card, it leaves a body.
And the sack fodder is relevant. I think it's going to play well. It's a crapshoot, but similarly, Corrupt Court Official. We just saw Virus Beetle be so good, which is essentially the same thing. 2 mana, 1/1. When it enters, opponent discards a card. It looks to me like this set it'll be relevant again, right? There's in black, you got all the casualty stuff you can sacrifice it to, or other sacrifice outlets. And there's a couple things that let you read ETB creatures. There's that black common spell when the creature dies, it comes back. I think it has a good shot at just being a really good 2-drop for the black decks. Red, I picked Strangle. Seems like a no-brainer to me. These all seem like no-brainers for red. Strangle, 3 damage for 1 mana. Exhibition Magician, a 2/1, and you either get a 1/1 body or treasure with it. And then the Gold Hound. I think you're with me on the Gold Hound, thinking that's going to be pretty good.
Yeah, definitely.
Green, here's the other super busto common. Jewel Thief, 3/3, Vigilance, Trample. When it enters the battlefield, create a treasure token.
Sweetness.
What? I mean, again, you're taking that over a lot of rares.
Yeah.
Plus, you just have to think that's like so much easier to cast.
Yeah.
Whatever 3 mana you got.
Keeps you open.
And I like Prize Fight for a good common removal spell in green. And then the third spot, I don't know what you're going to pick. I think people are sleeping. Maybe I'm a little higher on this than I should be, but I think other people are a little too low on this. This is Social Climber Alliance. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life. That incidental life gain is just always so good and limited. I can totally see this over the course of a game gaining you 3, 4, 5, 6 life.
If you're making all those tokens too, right?
The green decks are making lots of tokens. You saw there's just a lot of like make a 1/1 citizen stapled to so many cards.
Right.
And plus you're going to have other alliance payoffs too. So I think Social Climber has a potential to be a card that is has a good win rate and people are kind of surprised by. Maybe it's not a top 3 common, but the only problem is it's 3 mana. You're not running that over Jewel Thief.
Yeah.
Or the Inspired Overseer or whatever, the white one. Almost done here. Coming to some people's favorite section, the cards I think are traps. Obscura Ascendancy. So you see these rare Ascendancies, you think, okay, this is going to be good. But like some of them are very Buildaroundy. So this one, whenever you cast a spell, if its mana value is equal to 1 plus the number of soul counters on Obscura Ascendancy, you put a soul counter on it and create a 2/2 white spirit creature token with flying. So you got to play this. Then you got to start with a spell that costs 1 mana. So you have to have that in your hand and not have played it by the time you play this. Otherwise, then it just does nothing. But if you somehow manage to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then all those spirits you made get +3/+3. I think this is just one you let it go around. Similarly, Riveteer's Ascendancy. Whenever you sacrifice a creature, you may return target creature card with lesser mana value from your graveyard to the battlefield. Tap. Do this only once each turn. I mean, if you've got a heavy sacrifice theme, you can play this.
Yeah.
But again, it's a 3 mana enchantment that does not affect the board. You really need to know you're going to be able to trigger it reliably, I think. And you're probably just better off not putting it in your deck. Here's one where I'm in disagreement with limited resources. Maybe I'm wrong. I probably am. An offer you can't refuse. Counter target non-creature spell. Its controller creates 2 treasure tokens. So for 1 less mana, you get a negate, but you're giving your opponent 2 treasures. Again, it's that thing we talked about with the white exile spell. Like, do you really want to be giving your opponents treasures? I don't think so.
Yeah. You're like passing up, like not wanting to counter stuff too, and like hoping that you scale that late game and get the right thing. And it's just like as they build up.
Right.
And
The limited
just
resource
feels
point was
bad.
by the time you play this, you're saving your best creature, and you don't care if they've got 2 mana because they've already got
It's
plenty
like
of mana.
that case is like made if you draw that later in the game, and it's a later game thing. Imagine that hitting your hand like in your opening hand, or you drawing that like early on, and you just don't want to counter, their whatever combat trick or derpy spell because you're gonna ramp them out. And it just too situational.
Yeah.
And then
I
doesn't
think it's the divine. What is that card in Kaldheim? The divine whatever. The 2 white that exile something, and they just get to put something into play from their hand.
yeah.
It's like
I
the
mean,
blue
two
version of
treasures
that.
is no. It was like that's might be better than whatever they're
Yeah.
likely whatever they're playing early on. So then it's sitting in your hand.
Yeah.
I don't know. Feels like a
I think
card
it's a
to
card
me.
for commander. It's a great card for commander, right? It's political. Oh, I countered your spell, but it's okay. You get some treasures. Similarly, structural assault. This seems like a commander card. Destroy all artifacts, then it deals damage to each creature equal to the number of artifacts that were put into graveyards from the battlefield this turn. Like, clearly you can kind of go off with it in the treasure deck, but then you're wiping all your citizens and tokens and everything too.
Yeah.
It just seems like you don't have as much control over it, which is what you really want with your board wipes. I'm sure there will be good limited decks that use it, but I think it's probably very hard to do. Very narrow use cases. Even the score, triple blue pips. You're never going to trigger the thing if your opponent has drawn 4 more cards this turn. That's just never going to come up. And I mean, instant speed draw, but then you're paying 6 mana to draw 3 cards.
It's a treasure thing, right? I mean, you have all these treasures or something.
I think
it's like it's not as basic because
you're disappointed if you open that as one of
yeah.
your rares in your sealed pack.
One of the blues or something.
This thing, Cement Shoes, they clearly had the name, but they just didn't do the right stuff with it. 1 mana equipment, equips for 2, gives the creature +3/+3. Sounds great. Sounds super. But then at the beginning of your end step, tap this creature, and then it doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. So you got to constantly be moving it back and forth from your creatures. You put it on for 2, you attack with the +3/+3, then you move it over to like a 1/1 or something. That 1/1 gets tapped, so you don't get to block with it.
Because you have to do that.
And so that's 4 mana. And then you're gonna have to do that again. So it's like 4 mana every turn to give +3/+3. I think just don't bother with this. Public Enemy. This is an enchant creature. It makes the all creatures attack enchanted creatures controller each combat if able. So I guess you play it on your own creature, and then when it dies, draw a card. Unless you want to play it on your opponent's creature because you have removal and you know you're going to remove it. It's still 3 mana. It's just, no. Some of these hideaway cards are also like really hard to trigger. You remember hideaway mechanic? You know this one? They changed it a little bit. It used to be part of the mechanic that the thing came in tapped.
Okay.
And it was always a certain amount of cards, and they changed it now so it's like a hideaway and then a number.
Gotcha.
No, the explainer text helps you. It says when it enters the battlefield, you look at the top 5 cards of your library, you exile 1 face down, put the rest on the bottom of the library, on the bottom in a random order. So you're going to dig 5, you're going to pick your biggest, splashiest spell, put that face down under it, and then when you hit a certain point, in this case with Cemetery Tampering, getting 20 or more cards in your graveyard, then you can play the exiled card without paying its mana cost.
Yeah. The mill deck is a self-mill deck is really what
yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, maybe you play this in your Reanimator deck, right? Because you're going to, beginning your upkeep, you mill 3 cards. You may mill 3 cards, which is good for limited, right? But I just think, like, if you're playing to, like, cheat in your giant creature off a hideaway 5, first it has to be in the top 5 cards of your library somehow. And then you got to get 20 or more cards in your graveyard, so you got to dodge all the, like, graveyard exile incidental stuff, too.
Yeah, you don't have to go into these bad cards.
Yeah, it's 3 mana, doesn't do much in limited. Arcane Bombardment is 6 mana, doesn't do anything immediately. When you cast your first instant or sorcery each turn, you exile instant or sorcery at random from your graveyard, and you copy each card exiled with it. You can definitely storm off with it, but so slow. And then Meeting of the 5, really splashy looking mythic, but apparently the backstory on this was they never quite figured out what to do with this card, and so they just made it cost a ton of mana, so they knew that it wasn't going to break anything. But it's supposed to be like kind of like a Niv Mizzet, but for 3 color spells.
Right.
If you want to have fun with the format, you do the build around. I mean, you could do the build around of it.
Yeah.
But exile the top 10 cards of your library. You may cast spells with exactly 3 colors from among them this turn. Add double Wooburg. Spend this mana only to cast spells with exactly 3 colors. So you've already spent 8 mana to cast this. Probably don't have too much extra mana hanging around. You get 10 mana back, but you can only cast.
Yeah, it's not.
But your best case scenario, you're casting 3. You have to have enough spells with exactly 3 colors in your deck. First of all,
you're casting like 2 spells.
So you're spending 8 mana. You're spending 8 mana to exile 10 cards of your library, which is no feat in limited. And your best case scenario is you cast 3 of them, I think.
You're casting 1 more than you're probably casting 3.
Yeah.
No thanks.
Nope. Money drafts. If you don't want to pass stuff that's worth money, here's kind of what is big money at the moment of recording. Lord Xander is the crime family mythic head that's big money. Probably going to get banned in Commander, so just be careful if you're picking this up. You want to build it as a Commander deck. People are already talking about banning it. Luxior, Giada's Gift, is a cool equipment that can turn planeswalkers into creatures. So people want to build that. Obviously, the big splashy planeswalker of the set is Obnixilis. Bootlegger Stash, we talked about. This is actually the biggest money card, I think, due to Commander. I see pre-sales going like $50 for this right now. We'll see what it goes for once people actually play with it. But again, limited, do nothing artifact. The turn it comes down, 6 mana, does nothing. But then lands you control can tap to create treasures, which means you can really go off later. Giada is a really cool limited card, so you can draft that, play it, and also sell it for big money. And all the tri-lands, pick them up. They're going to be good in the draft anyway. You first pick a tri-land, right?
Did you first pick it over that white common?
The white common? Yeah, I would first pick it over the white common because I know it's
Would
going to
you?
be worth more money.
On Arena? Or
Yeah. Even then, wow,
take a try on?
I'm gonna be able to play these lands in like so many decks.
Sure.
So
If
I
you're
would
trying
still
to
take
win
it
your
there. If I'm only trying to win, that's a good question. If I'm playing to win, if I'm playing to spike the tournament,
yeah, it wouldn't
I
be.
probably would take the 2/1 flyer,
You certainly would.
right? Because these are replaced by common lands that also enter tapped and fix you
You're
for
right.
one of your 3 colors.
Sure.
These fix you
Forget
for
that.
all your 3 colors. If you draft this pick one, pack one, are you doing the 4 or 5 color soup deck? Because you know you can branch out from this.
No, I don't. I don't think so. Plenty of fixing. You're either like trying to lane yourself that way and early on.
Bro, we did it again. You listened to me yammer on about a new set.
Um, I'm like fading myself. I'm getting tired.
um, so what do you think? Pretty flavorful with the like Art Deco gangster
Power
land.
level, yeah. There's not like as many bombs, and so I feel like it's.
Well, I mean I concentrated on commons and uncommons.
I guess that's just true. I don't know.
So you're
Um,
gonna have a mythic level legendary for each of the crime families. You're gonna have lots of rares. There's the rare cycle of the ascendancies and the uncommons with the charms.
oh,
There's
sure, it's fun. I want to play
um,
it. That's what I'm on.
yeah, there's some powerful rares, and you'll be able to see them in context of like what support they have at common and
Yeah,
uncommon when you see them in your
I like
packs.
all of the different ways you can go with 3 color, 2 color, 4 color, 5 color. That's all seems pretty fun. They really have a nice feel for.
I think the fixing is ridiculous. I think people are going to be playing 4 and 5 colored soup
Sure,
like right from the pre-release.
sure.
And in terms of sealed, like now that you've seen all the crime families, which like you're walking into a pre-release, what crime family are you picking to get the little booster pack of cards from their color, their 3 colors?
I forget the names. I'm like, I don't know.
Well, you remember the
Memorized.
colors or the archetypes? What
Yeah, I would probably go like I'm liking the aggro stuff with I don't
like
know.
the green, red, black,
Yeah, what's the green white
green, white, red, the cabaretti?
green white red? Yeah, that
Yeah,
would be a good
the one
one.
that you were sleeping on, the one you were texting during.
Yeah, but I like all of those cards.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
I
I
yeah.
think that is a very well supported archetype at common and uncommon for sure. And you like to go wide swarm strategy.
Like it's yeah. I like getting down fast and like putting the screws to the opponent where they're gonna have to figure out how to come back.
Yeah, if enough people are dirtling around trying to do 4 or 5 color
Sure,
plays, you can just get in and
absolutely. The
close them out quickly.
yeah.
Turn your treasures into 4/4 flying angels and just pop them in the face.
Your Voltron deck might be good. Like just trying to build like quick to the ground big creature.
Quick to the ground, big creature with protection behind it.
Yeah.
These shield counters will be really interesting to see how they play out. I think they're going to be really annoying.
And they're gonna be aggressive. Those decks just want to attack.
It's kind of like a one-time ward effect or one-time hexproof or something.
Well, it just makes the trading hard because the creature loses the shield counter. Like, how are you gonna win these
Well,
against the swings?
I think that makes that little guy that you can ping for 1 when you sacrifice something go up in value too. Just occurs to me, right? Because that's another one where you can just throw around 1 ping damage, but that 1 ping damage will remove shield counters. And you saw how
Okay.
like having counters on the creatures actually pays off a lot in the especially the blue white.
Yeah. Sure.
Well, cool. Well, thanks everybody who has watched this far. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. I'm going to do another giveaway like I did when I got to 100 subscribers. So if you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. You will know about that when that happens. Leave a comment. Which crime family scares you the most? Leave a comment also if you have a better idea of what you're going to do at the pre-release or what your strategy is going to be. Any other thoughts before we fall asleep?
What's your crime family? What are you gonna play?
I don't know. I kind of want to play the 5-color soup, so I might do like
I
a
was feeling like
cabaret.
you're doing that.
I might do a cabaret, try to get all the treasure cards, and then just everything else bomb that I open in the other packs, try to
Makes
mash in
sense on the
together.
sealed. That's a good strategy.
But I do think the Maestro strategy is good too. The removal, you saw black and red had some good removal,
Yeah.
very deep on removal, and then blue has card draw.
Sure.
And all the connive and the
Yeah.
it's just cycle through your deck, find those bombs,
Yeah. That's
find
gonna
those
be good too.
bombs, remove your opponent's bombs, and win.
That's gonna be good.
But maybe
Sweet.
you'll be swarming the ground with aggro and just take that strategy right out the knees.
It's its own strategy just to be aggressive in the 3-color decks.
Yeah.
It's settings.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining us dads here in the attic. I've been Manadad with Brobi 1 Kenobi. Remember, Magic is a game so fun, even dads can enjoy it. Adios.
Later.